I'm Paddy. I'm starting to create the story about my wisdom stones and the wisdom stone journey or guide that's come to me. And these are the wisdom stone little chaps here, and I've begun using them as a therapeutic tool. I'm a trained therapist, university trained. But before I got into explaining the wisdom stone journey, I thought I should explain what's my history and connection with these stones or rocks, and where did they come from. So I'd like to try and explain that, and I suppose it goes back to my youth, really. When I was young, I spent most of my time playing in the forests, climbing cliffs and throwing rocks and all that sort of stuff. So the energy of the forest and its rocks are very much part of my life. Significantly, 20 years ago, I was living near a major national park, the Moreton National Park. It's about 160,000 hectares, rather large. And where I lived, it was vast sandstone gullies and gorges. And one day I was sitting on one of the huge cliffs overlooking a three-way gorge with massive sandstone cliffs. And I was meditating there and getting these really strong energy connections. And I looked up and there was this massive stone cliff, 100 meters tall and kilometers long. And I realized that it had been there for millions of years. It had been soaking up the sun for the sun's rays for millions of years, and it had also been witness to 40,000 years of Australian Indigenous peoples walking up through its gullies on the way from the coast to the inland. So I thought that was pretty special, and I meditated on that and asked what I call the spirit of the Moreton National Park what I could do to help this landscape, this energy, this spirit. And I got a very simple and straightforward answer in that just make yourself useful, preserving and using this resource. So yeah, that was pretty powerful, and I've stuck with that as an intention. About 10 years ago, I was at a men's workshop, part of the shaman tradition, archetypal stuff, poetry, and we were in a large forest called the Churros Forest, and on a beautiful river, the Churros River. And in that river bed were beautiful basalt rocks of all shapes and sizes, all smooth and polished from thousands of years of movement in that river. And I started being fascinated by that. So I started walking around and collecting rocks that caught my eye. And these are the rocks that came from that. Anyhow, without much thought about that except a definite interest to collect some rocks. I took them home. And after a while, in looking at them, I thought, oh, they can be my little spirit advisors, little symbols for connection to nature and ancient wisdom and the timeless experience of nature. And I had the idea of creating some little plinths to stand them on, to give them more of a persona and a sculptural effect. And yeah, I really enjoyed that, and they spoke to me. They had a very strong presence for me. And I started taking them into the forest of the Moreton National Park and arranging them and photographing them, because it was a fun thing to do. I mean, they became my friends, and I enjoyed placing them in unique spots with unique views and photographing them. There was some sense for me of some bigger mystery connection with spirit, or the mystery and magic of the forest. It's just my story. So then I started using them. I used to run some workshops, mainly for men, and I started using them in the workshops. And one of the ways I'd use them, or the main way, was to put the, then I called them ancestor rocks, out on the table, and I'd say to the men, look, I want you to meditate on your ancestors or spirits generally. Take yourself into a deeper place and connect with your own spirit and the concept of ancestors and the spirit world generally. And I'd like you, when you open your eyes, to select one of these spirit rock sculptures that speaks to you and connects you to whatever connection you made during that meditation. It could be a grandfather, it could be an ancient ancestor, it could be anything. So just choose one and create or name up a relationship with it. You can speak to us now if you like on what that represents for you. And at the end of the workshop, in 2 days' time, I'd like you to present your ancestor rock and just tell us the story that's arisen for you over the 2 days with that rock. And that was proved to be quite a powerful experience for some of the men. It brought back memories of grandfathers and stories and other things. So I've since used those rocks in a number of workshops, and it's always been something that's been useful and productive. And I took them with me. I moved to Tasmania from New South Wales, a long journey, but I took my ancestor rocks with me, and I had them here because they're my friends, and there was some sense that they wanted me to continue doing the work with them. And one day a friend arrived. He'd come down to Tasmania for our famous Wooden Boat Festival, and he stopped off at my place on his return to the mainland from Tasmania. And he was involved in work similar to me, younger. He was about 50. And we were talking about life in general and issues. And I saw an issue that I thought I'd like to draw to his attention. But I also wanted not that to be my observation. I wanted to be able to do something with him that gave him the opportunity of seeing what I was seeing. And suddenly the inspiration came. Well, I could use my, what I now call my wisdom stones, to set up a journey plan or playpen and invite him to do some work in that, which I did. I said, would you like to play a bit of a game with my wisdom stones? And he said, yeah. So I created a setup, and it actually achieved the goal I was wanting to. For him to be able to realise some aspects about his future and plan. So it was very successful. You know, it was one of those things where I had an inspiration, did something with someone who was keen on doing that sort of work, and it worked. And since then I've done it with a further 8 people, and it's proved similarly very useful with them as well. So I thought, hey, you know, this looks like it might have some legs as a therapeutic tool or life journey guide. And for once in my life, it was something that was an inspiration that came to me. It wasn't something as such that I was trying to manufacture and push. So, you know, when you stop trying to cling on to things and make them work, sometimes they just come to you, and this was the first time that had come in a way. So that was pretty special for me. So the next story I tell, the next video, I'll actually set out what the wisdom stone looks like, and I'll talk a bit about that. So thanks for listening to my story, and I'll catch up later. Bye now.